Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker made their spring debuts for the Rangers. Where should Kumar Rocker start his season? Also, how should Bruce Bochy align the Texas Rangers starting pitching rotation at the big league level? All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, the founder and host for all 4 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Before we get into today's show, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit fanduel.com/lockedon today to get started. Now, let's take a little bit of a look at what is going on with the Rangers. Yesterday's game, the Rangers won 6-4 against the Colorado Rockies. Some highlights of that game. So Marcus Semien had a 3-hit day. Cody Bradford, the lefty, started out there, looked pretty solid in his, I believe, spring debut. Clint Frazier and Brad Miller homered. Also, Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter both made their spring debuts. We'll get into that a little bit more, what they had to say about it, and some thoughts I have on Kumar Rocker in general. But we also got some injury updates from the beat writers this afternoon. First of which is Nathan Eovaldi has left side tightness, kind of similar to Jacob deGrom's injury, so he will miss his next start. The team will give him a couple days to recover. Shouldn't be that big a deal, they are thinking at this point. Jose Leclerc has neck discomfort, and according to GM, quote, they're monitoring his status as to whether we let him go to the World Baseball Classic or not. It's something he can pitch through right now, but we want to make sure he's 100%, end quote. That is from Chris Young per Levi Weaver. Also, Rangers pitching prospect Owen White, one of the top prospects in the system, my number 3 prospect on my preseason list. He has tightness in the right side of his neck. He will be held out of action for the next couple of days. Jake Odorizzi is still continuing to build up. We haven't seen him in the game just yet. He came into the camp a little bit behind, has some arm fatigue, and threw a light bullpen yesterday. I don't know what a light bullpen is, but that's what Levi tweeted, so that is what I'm saying and relaying on to you. Make your own conclusions about what a light bullpen is. Maybe it's, I don't know, better than a dark bullpen? Anyway, another thing that I think is worthy of noting, the Rangers have 2 games today that are going on about 5 minutes into me starting this recording, but in the kind of A game, we have, this is something that Levi has been tracking since the start of spring training. Robbie Grossman is making his 4th start in left field. He was doing a left field tracker because he thought, okay, there's going to be a bunch of different guys starting in left field. And, well, we got 5-6 games, maybe 7 today, or as of today, that will have happened. And, 4 of them, 6, I think. Because there have only been 2 other players to start in left field. One of them is Clint Frazier, who has 1 game. Josh Smith has one other game. And Robbie Grossman has the other 4 starts in left field. So it kind of seems like the one position battle we thought that we would have going into the spring is already done. It's going to be Robbie Grossman. He's going to be the Rangers left fielder. And sure, fine. I think it's pretty good. He has been doing fairly well so far in the spring. Has a home run. This spring is hitting 600, I believe, as of the most recent game, not the one that is either currently going on or just happened as you are listening to this. But so exciting stuff from him in the spring. 3 for 5, with a home run, 4 RBI, on base of 714, 1914 OPS. I don't think that's necessarily going to translate in the regular season of having a 1914 OPS, and unless just he gets possessed by the spirit of Barry Bonds. Even then, that would be a bit much, but it's exciting. It's good to see him have a good spring and see him in a good way. Now, let's look a little bit at Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter, the most exciting part of yesterday's game. All due respect to Clint Frazier and Brad Miller's home runs. That was by far thing that I was watching the most, and also all due respect to Ian Kennedy's multiple home runs that he gave up, and Joe Barlow's one home run that he gave up, and a pretty solid two innings from Cody Bradford, the left-hander who's a pitching prospect that I really like. I think I put him on here. 15 in my preseason top ranking list. So yeah, I really like Cody Bradford as well. Kind of cool to see him get the start in a game that also was scheduled to have Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker. Like, oh, Cody Bradford gets to start. It's a nice little nod to him. But anyway, both those guys looked pretty solid. The velocity from Kumar Rocker wasn't exactly what I wanted to see. It was kind of, I think, what I saw on Twitter was 92 to 94, which is fine. Nobody needs to be throwing 100% full gas from the very start of spring training. Looks like Nate Eovaldi was doing that in the upper 90s in his first start, and well, now he's got some left side tightness, so you got to build up to that stuff. But Rocker did say about that 99-mile-an-hour sinker that he threw to Josh Young. He said, it's probably more about 97. So that was a fun little tidbit Evan Grant wrote about a week ago, maybe 3 days ago. I don't know. What is time? It's March. I still can't believe we're already there. But both those guys look solid, pitched scoreless innings. Jack Leiter got the win, the most meaningless stat, a win in a spring training game. But congrats to him. Pitched a perfect inning, got a strikeout, looked really good. Kumar Rocker allowed one hit, no walks. I believe he did hit a batter as well, but then got him out, caught stealing. That was fun, a fun little thing for him. But scoreless inning, no strikeouts, no walks. Good deal. Good for them. Getting on the mound, feeling pretty good. Bruce Bochy said that they both threw well and have great stuff, and he says great to see them, get out there and get their feet wet. He said, "quote It's only going to get better with these two." And personally, I was looking forward to seeing them myself. Both I thought handled himself well, and the leadoff man got on. But the important thing is how they handled that, and they handled it well. I think I got that confused, that Rocker allowed a hit, and then Leiter was the one who hit a batter and then got him caught stealing. This is what Kumar Rocker had to say about his debut. He said, quote, "It was the second time of kind of being in that stadium and environment," because he was in the Arizona Fall League there. He said it felt a little bit more official that way, and I feel a little more comfortable. I definitely feel better throwing the ball out there, end quote. Jack Leiter, who had a difficult season last year, learned a lot about himself and about routines and about being a professional and about how double-A hitters are a lot better than SEC hitters. This is what he had to say yesterday. He said, quote, "These guys," he said, "I just think overall it's been a lot more comfortable as a whole in spring training. Being in big league camp feels more comfortable. I feel like, I had a really good off season. I was productive, so I feel good about where everything's at. It's like an endless bank of knowledge that we have in the clubhouse and on the field with obviously the Maddoxes, Greg and Mike. I think I've learned a lot. I'm just trying to listen and quietly just observe as they go about their business," end quote. Those are some two really, really great guys to learn from. Also, Jacob deGrom, not a bad guy to go and follow around and see how he does his stuff. Same with Nathan Eovaldi, same with Martin Perez, John Gray, all these guys who have been pros for a long time. But Greg Maddux, good guy to learn from as a pitcher. And one of the things that Bruce Bochy said at the end was just saying, quote, "These guys will let you know when they're ready." And I thought that was a great quote and really kind of got me excited about both these guys. Coming up, we're going to look at where Kumar Rocker should probably start his season, what that rotation is going to look like, and what are some expectations for him and this starting rotation and what it should look like. But first, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The midway point of the NBA season is here now, and it is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It is safe, secure, and super easy to use. You can bet on all kinds of things, from the money line to point scorers and three strain. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay as well. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Now, let's look at Kumar Rocker. Where should he start his season? Last year, we saw Jack Leiter make his professional debut at AA, which was an aggressive jump. Leiter is, well, I think they're both about the same age. Obviously, Leiter was a year younger than Rocker when he made his professional debut, or I guess AA debut. And Rocker was maybe a little bit more polished. I think he definitely had more innings under his belt in college than Leiter did. But, Leiter was still a very, very polished pitcher when he came into the minor leagues. We saw a little bit of action in the Arizona Fall League from Kumar Rocker last year. That was where he made his minor league debut, made his professional debut in the Frontier League before he was drafted. So Rocker does have a little bit more experience. He is a little bit older. But I do still think that I would rather Kumar Rocker start the season in High A Hickory. Honestly, looking back, I think I probably would have rather had Jack Leiter start the season in High A Hickory as well, because it was such a difficult transition, such a big ask. But it was Jack Leiter. He was a number 2 overall pick. He was, the son of a 20-year big leaguer, multi-time All-Star, a guy who had won a World Series. He was probably going to start in AA, if not for just the marketing alone. And I think he was ready. It was just a little bit of a tough test. But I think that with Rocker, because he is working on a bunch of different things, he is kind of reworking his delivery in a way that Jack Leiter wasn't. I would feel a lot more comfortable with him starting in High A. I think he's going to go there, and I think he's going to dominate. But just get that little bit of comfort under your belt, oh yeah, remember, I am an absolute beast, not having to start your minor league career or your full season minor league career in a place where you're getting lit up a little bit, and how hitters are so incredibly good. They'll be much better than anything he's faced in the Frontier League or in the Arizona Fall League as well, in that Texas League if he started in AA. Plus, the AA rotation is pretty stacked right now. At this point, I would think it kind of stacks up like this with Owen White, assuming this neck thing doesn't end up spiraling too much as the opening day starter, or maybe it's Jack Leiter. Then you have Cody Bradford, who I think will be in AA probably to start the season. He might end up in AAA. That's a question mark at this point. Antoine Kelly is going to be there. We'll see what the deal is with him. I saw him a little bit one outing last year that was a little bit rough. He's kind of a wild man, but the stuff is really raw and really nice. And at the number 5 spot in that rotation, I think it's going to be one of Ricky Vanasco or Tekoa Roby. Both those guys had kind of mixed bag seasons in High A last year. Roby, I think, had a little bit better of a season. Both of them ended on very strong notes. Ricky Vanasco is quite a bit older than Tekoa Roby, so I think he might have the edge there. I think Roby will make his way to AA at some point next season, because I really, really like his stuff, and I think that he is better than the results, and I think he's going to jump up on some prospect lists at the mid-season mark, mine included. But that is 6 guys that I just rattled off, and that is before I even got to Kumar Rocker. So I think he'll probably start in Hickory. That rotation, I think, is going to be really solid. There's a lot of guys at that level. There's just a lot of pitching prospects in the system. Going through this little exercise right here, making me realize, the state of the pitching on this farm is really darn good. So at this point, I think the Hickory rotation would look something like this. Kumar Rocker, if he is there, he's probably going to be the opening day starter, and I think he should be. There's also Dane Acker at that level, Ryan Garcia, Mitch Bratt, possibly Emiliano Teodo, Josh Steffen, and Larson Kendrick, possibly. And that's, 7 guys that I just listed off. Let's see if we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, 7 guys there. I listed 6 in that AA rotation. That's a lot of quality starting pitchers. I mean, maybe Cody Bradford ends up in AAA, and maybe Antoine Kelly, they decide to just go ahead and fast track him to the bullpen, which I think is a real option and probably the most likely scenario with him, because his stuff is so nasty and he doesn't really know where it's going at this moment. If he can figure that out, that will keep him as a starting pitcher. But either way, the stuff's real nasty, and he's got a lot of potential there, as do pretty much all of those guys that I just listed off. They do have the ceiling of being, at the very least, a number 5 in a big league rotation. That is 13 guys that I just listed, with at least the ceiling of being a number 4 or 5 in a big league rotation. That's very difficult to do. That is not something that you have in a lot of systems, and the Rangers have that. And I didn't even mention any of the guys who I think are going to start in AAA or the guys who are going to start in Low A, and I haven't even talked about Brock Porter yet. that's kind of a picture of how deep the pitching on this farm system is. And speaking of the depth of the pitching, let's look at the big league rotation because it is an exciting one and one of the deepest that the Rangers have had in many, many moons. So at this point, I want to look at a little bit of expectations of where I have these guys, just kind of ranking those. Obviously, deGrom, I have the highest expectations for him. Self-explanatory. He's Jacob freaking deGrom. He's the best pitcher on the planet. End of story. Second highest expectations, I have really high expectations for Nathan Eovaldi. Hoping that this side tightness doesn't spiral and it can be handled just as nicely as Jacob deGrom's was, and we can freak out less about that collectively as a baseball internet, as a Rangers fandom, than we did about deGrom's. But I think it'll be fine, and I have really high expectations for him because he has shown that incredibly high ceiling. Jon Gray, I think I have the next highest expectations for. Maybe, no, let's flip that. I got to put Martin Perez up there because what he did last year, I've said a million times, I don't think was a fluke. Maybe it'll come back down to earth just a little bit next year, or this year, I guess I should say. But I actually do have those high expectations. He's making a lot of money on this one-year deal for this qualifying offer, and I wish they could have signed him to something in the $15 million range for 3 years and kind of committed to him. But this gives him another trial run, and if it goes as well as last year, then he's going to be making about probably $18 to $20 million a year on a 3 to 4 year contract this coming season, or this coming off season, as opposed to the maybe 10 to 15 million that if he kind of falls back down to earth that I think he probably would make. But expectations for me are high for Martin Perez, and I think he's going to have another bounce back season, and the price of the brick is going up for him. It is going way up because he is really darn good. Next on here, I have Jon Gray, and then Andrew Heaney is just a little bit after that. I don't have super high expectations for Heaney. I think it's a really good deal the Rangers got him on, and having him as your number 5 starter is just shows how deep this rotation is, and having legitimately six capable big league starters is something this rotation hasn't had since the playoff drought, really. That, I think, is one of the biggest differences. But as to how I would start this season in terms of what order I put these guys in, I really have to think about the number 1 who's going to be the opening day starter. No, it's going to be Jacob deGrom. Duh. And then I'd put Martin Perez second in this rotation, possibly because I think he might end up being the second best pitcher in this rotation this year. I really do. And partially just putting a lefty out there, because in a series going from facing Jacob deGrom, who is this otherworldly stuff, incredible velo, incredible swing and miss, and then the next day in a series you have to go and face Martin Perez, who is a crafty lefty who gets you with guile and pitch placement and making you swing at bad pitches and drive them into the freaking dirt. I think that's a really fun and mean thing to do to your opponents. And I think that'd be a good way to set up this rotation. Next, I have Nathan Eovaldi on the number 3 spot in the rotation, then Jon Gray, then Andrew Heaney, and maybe Jake Odorizzi at the number 6 spot in the rotation. I mean, they've been a lot of different people have been asked about the Rangers possibly going to a 6-man rotation. Chris Young said it's a possibility that they're considering. Mike Maddox said that they were thinking about it, but it kind of depends on how the season stacks up. I mean, right now, if you're looking early on in the season, the Rangers have a lot of off days. There's 4 off days in April/March. I mean, it's literally one day in March. They go for opening day on the 29th. 30th. Yeah. There's 31 days in March. Totally knew that. So they go for opening day on the Thursday, the 30th, and you have that Friday off. And then you have 3 off days in April, all on Thursdays, the 6th, 13th, and 12th. So, yeah, not any prolonged stretches there where the Rangers are going to be asked to do a whole lot and where you could keep that 5-man rotation, everybody can get their normal rest and maybe even a little bit of extra rest. I think that'd be good. Then you look at May, it's the same. There's 4 days off there. In June, it's a little bit less. There are 3 days off in the month of June. Starting on the 1st, all these are on Thursdays. I don't have any Monday off days. Like it feels like, they have one Monday off day in the first 3 months of the season, and that is May 1st, and that's it until July, when you have the home run derby on Monday, July 10th. So not a whole lot of Monday off days for this team, a lot of Thursday off days, just something to plan your schedule around if you're planning your schedule around baseball like I am at this moment. But I think that it would be something that the Rangers should do at some point. I think later on in the season is when it's more likely that they'll go to a 6-man rotation, but that also assumes that all 6 of these guys are healthy, and not sure that's necessarily going to be the case. Hopefully, yes, it is. But it's entirely possible that is very much not the case. And in September, there's only 2 off days in that month to close out the season. There's a couple of week-long road trips in the middle from the 11th of September all the way to the 17th. They travel to Toronto and for 4 games, and then they travel to Cleveland for 3 games as well, and they come back. And they've got a West Coast road trip to end the season with 3 games against the Angels on the 25th through 27th, and then they end the season in Seattle from the 28th to October 1st. So I think later on in the season, that might be more of a possibility. Maybe in the month of May, they kind of look at doing that a little bit. But I don't think it's necessarily something, especially because month of May is going to be a little tough. They got an off day on the 4th, and the 1st. So they got a couple off days there, but then they have a really long West Coast road trip from May 5th all the way to May 14th, where they travel to Anaheim, then up to Seattle, then down to Oakland for 4 games to close that out, and then come back and have 3 games against the Braves. So, good luck with that. Hopefully you get some rest in on the flight back from Oakland on the 14th, because you got a tough 3-game series there. But the rest of the month of May, outside of that long road trip and those 3 games against the Braves, I think should be really great for the Rangers, because the final 3 series of the month of May have 3 games against the Pirates, then against the Orioles, which should be tough, but then end it with 3 games at the Tigers. So that should be hopefully some wins there. But yeah, when we're talking about the depth of this rotation, before I got completely spun off on that, the last time the Rangers had depth like this, where they had 6 guys who I felt comfortable being actual capable major league pitchers it's in its starting rotation, was probably 2016. I mean, that was a really, really deep rotation. They had Cole Hamels. Yu Darvish came back towards the end of the year. Derek Holland was there and was fine. AJ Griffin was the weak link in that rotation, but he still pitched 119 innings with an ERA just over 5. They also had Colby Lewis being more than serviceable. Derek Holland being fine. Martin Perez, that was probably his best year before this past year, and he threw almost 200 innings, literally an inning and a third shy of that. And Cole Hamels was... well, he was his Cole Hamels self. He was, 3.32 ERA, 200 innings, 200 strikeouts. He was just what Cole Hamels did. And, that was the last time the Rangers made the playoffs. And I think this Rangers team might be better than that 2016 Rangers team. I mean, it's close. The bullpen that year was absolutely disgusting, and I think that really, really helped them, because that was the year they had the insane record in those one-run games. But I think the offense for Texas is deeper this year. I mean, that year they had Adrian Beltre doing Adrian Beltre things. They had the career year from Elvis Andrus when he had an 800 OPS. They had Rougned Odor at his peak. Robinson Chirinos was fantastic that year. Mazzara was participating. They got a little bit out of Carlos Beltran. Shin-Soo Choo was pretty fine. Ian Desmond had that year. That was a great Ian Desmond year. But I think this offense is deeper. I don't think that anybody on this team is as good as Adrian Beltre. But, that's an incredibly high compliment to give anybody to say that they're as good as Adrian Beltre. But the depth of, say, the 2nd through fourth or fifth best position player, I think is significantly better this year than it was in 2016. But I mean, you look at some of those rotations from the playoff years, look at 2015 as well. There was also a pretty deep rotation. Did see a lot of starts from Wandy Rodriguez, but they had 6 guys who made 12 or more starts in the year, and none of them had an ERA over 5. Wandy Rodriguez had a 4.9 ERA. Colby Lewis led the team with 200 innings and a 4.66 ERA. But, everybody else had an ERA under 4.5. Martin Perez, who got injured that year, only threw 79 innings. You had Cole Hamels. You had Eovaldi Gallardo being fantastic that year. Nick Martinez had a sub-4 ERA. In 125 innings that year. That was a pretty deep rotation. I mean, look at 2012. That, I think, was probably the best rotation that the Rangers have had. Martin Perez was, not there. Matt Harrison. Sorry, I got confused. Matt Harrison had that fantastic year as Yu Darvish's rookie year. Maybe 2011 was a little bit better in terms of just depth, but they didn't have a Yu Darvish there, so obviously the top end was missing. But 2010 did have Cliff Lee in that rotation, but they had Derek Holland that year, Colby Lewis as well. 2011 was incredibly deep. CJ Wilson was we forget because he's kind of annoying sometimes. I kind of forget that he was a really, really good pitcher, just because his whole persona was just kind of just off-putting and lame. But he was really, really good in that 2011 season. I mean, the Rangers had 5 guys in the rotation with a sub 4.5 ERA. 4 of the 5 had a sub 4 ERA. Colby Lewis had a 4.4. Derek Holland was the next highest with a 3.95, and CJ Wilson was below 3. And that offense was absolutely incredible. Bullpen was not great that year, but it was just a solid depth of a rotation. And in 2010, you had C.J. Wilson, you had Colby Lewis, probably his best year, and then Cliff Lee in that playoff stretch, along with Scott Feldman participating occasionally, and Tommy Hunter, and also Alexi freaking Ogando, who, talk about a blast from the past, but that guy was a guy who I think really doesn't get nearly enough credit for how good he was in such an important way for those Rangers teams in the 2010s. But this depth is solid. The Rangers have the best pitcher who I think they have ever had in Jacob deGrom. If he is his Jacob deGromness, he is better than Cliff Lee. He is better than Yu Darvish. He is better than Nolan Ryan. No, that's not sacrilegious to say. Jacob deGrom is just that freaking good. But you look at 2 through 5 in this rotation, all solid adult big leaguers, and Jake Odorizzi is your depth at 6. And then you look behind that, you have Dane Dunning, Cole Reagans, and then we'll see about if Glenn Otto, Zach Kent, or Jake Latz are in there as well. But that's 8 deep on guys who I'd feel solid about giving at least 5 innings to. That's solid. That's about what the Rangers had last year. They had 8 pitchers go 5 or more starts last year. So that's about all you need. And hopefully, in a normal year, hopefully, assuming that this rotation that is filled with some potholes and some question marks and some potential for injury doesn't have anything horrendous happen to them. But even if it does, like I said, you've got that depth that hopefully you're not having to stretch into 9 or 10 guys having to make 5 or more starts for you next year. Hopefully it's 6, maybe 7 going 8 or more starts. That's what I'm hoping. That means that everybody's healthy and everybody's dealing, and life is good and the world is still spinning normally and the way the Rangers want it to. So yeah, it's just really impressive looking at the depth in this rotation compared to what it's been in years past. Especially remember that 2019 season where the Rangers had the 2 highest Baseball Reference WAR seasons by any starting pitcher they've ever had, and then the 3rd starter was Ariel Jurado. It's come a long way in terms of depth since then, and I am really excited to see what it looks like actually on the field. So freaking ready for opening day. 4.5-ish, a little over 4 weeks away. It's going to be a lot of fun. But that is going to do it for this edition of Locked On Rangers. On tomorrow's show, I will be talking a little bit about these 2 games happening today. Hopefully some more positive updates. Jacob deGrom, I believe, is throwing a bullpen today. Maybe we'll get some more news about that, and we can upgrade the deGrom rankings system. But thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, go check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball. Win your league by listening to Matt and Dom every day as they bring you the best fantasy draft strategy strategies. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.